20 or 30 years, toxic waste on the ground, and now you have arguably one of the longest contiguous green space walk opportunities in America.
Yeah.
Some people said it's even better than the Riverwalk in San Antonio. Now, there were people 10 and 12 years ago, I'll tell you because I was a reporter, there were people 10 and 12 years ago saying, let's not let the state and the private sector have our waterfront. People wanted it to be the old Rivertown, where you had to stumble over, you had to stumble over train tracks, where you had to, if you parked your car and did go to a saloon, you had to wonder whether it was going to be there, whether it was 12 noon or midnight. Now you got a place where you can take a 5-year-old. I take my 5-year-old on the playscape down there every day in the summer. I jog it every day. That is a partnership. That is a public-private partnership. Part of that area is a state-run facility. The Milliken State Park is an immaculate. It's small, to be sure. It's not nearly as large as Belle Isle, but it's a state-managed operation. I don't know what people are afraid of. I mean, if we want a 21st century city, we're going to have to act like it. And you can go to Chicago, and they recognize they're on a riverfront. We need to act like we're on a riverfront.
That's a great argument. I agree with some aspects of it. I just say it's too long. 30 years is too long. Cut it in half to 15 with the option of Detroit looking at that option for another 15 years, 10 to 15 years down the line. I do not want the state to have a hold of it. Detroit's going to be on a definite upswing within the next 15 years. It can manage Belle Isle after a 15-year time frame.
But we're dealing with the here and now, and right now Detroit is in no position to demand
There's no demanding.
Well, it kind of sounds like, like this is what I want right now. Wait a minute.
This is called negotiation, though. This is not demanding.
No, healthy negotiation. Yeah. But at the same time, there's an entity put in place ready to come in and help, and not citizens don't lose any of the wonderful aspects of the island. They incur an $11 fee to access all of the state parks.
And we haven't even mentioned
it's about 3 cents a day, about 3 pennies a day. As a matter of fact, I'll give you the 3 cents for today if you need it. Or the first day it opens.
Good point, Ken. Bring that up again.
Well, it hasn't been part of this conversation thus far, but we have to remember, in every proposal that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years, certainly in this one, pedestrians get on the island free.
Yeah.
You can ride a bike on the island free. You can skateboard on the island free. You can walk on the island free. It's not like South Africa where they say, where are your papers? I mean, all this conspiracy stuff, is silly to me.
Okay, who's talking conspiracy?
Well, there are people. I'm not saying
transit
you.
riders.
Well, Robert, I'm certainly not talking about you personally, but we have all had these conversations over the last 72 hours and over the last 6 months about these conspiracy theories about white men in sheets standing at the Belle Isle Bridge.
Big multi-million-dollar mansions. This isn't. It's not going to turn into Boblo Island.
Yeah.
This is still going to be a public.
I understand that. To support it, cut it in half.
You can't keep. We cheer when they say they're going to cut the grass 5 times a summer as opposed to 3. You can't keep the street lights on. You can't keep police on. You can't keep a police presence. Some of the better neighborhoods that have community organized folks struggle to get police to police their streets. This is a city that is broken. You have to provide basic services and allow through authorities and management agreements and public-private partnerships the opportunity for some of these things to be run in that fashion. I don't think anybody's complaining. Well, actually, there are a couple of people complaining, just 2 of them. There are a couple of people complaining about Cobo, but when you go into the new Cobo ballroom and you recognize now authority runs it, and we don't have to put resources in there that could go to the neighborhoods.
I haven't been
That's
in
a good
it.
thing.
Tell me.
Well, it's a beautiful. They've taken the arena and they've taken advantage of the water, and so now when you're in what was Cobo Arena, you can actually look out and see the beautiful Detroit River.
What I think what some of the issues are is the fact that, okay, you're not dealing with a public-private partnership here. You're dealing with the state, and the state, in some aspects, can't be trusted. There's several, and we talked about this earlier, with several aspects where the state reneged on a lot of its promises.
Yeah, no, there's no question. There's no question, and that goes both ways. I mean, we always talk about one side.
But I mean, that's the part, and I'm pretty sure that's part of where a lot of the conspiracy theories come in, and people give credence to that type of theory.
Right.
Well, the state don't hold up to its bargain, and that's where I have issue with that. That's number two. But number one, cut that in half. If we're going to have a deal, cut it in half. I don't want them to have sole possession for a 30-year lease. We can call it management. We can call it takeover. I do not.
Although I think it's a world of difference.
Tomatoes and tomatoes.
Tomatoes, tomatoes.
That was the lawyer. I want you to know that was the lawyer. That was the lawyer that said that.
It's a difference there. It's a difference there. Well, I'm hoping that the vendors that they choose to have on it, they will have Detroit residents get a chance to have their businesses there. A big chance.
And I'll be right with you.
And
in the line of
incentivize,
people. Yeah, I'll be right with all of you in the line of people who say we need to make sure that Detroiters, get the jobs, get the contracting opportunities. I think for me, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time on this. It doesn't have to be all one way or the other.
I just don't want them to chew the gum as long as they want
And
to.
then spit it out and then don't pick it up.
Also, Robert, I see you're planning to stay in Detroit.
Yeah,
You're going to make it your home.
Yes, for surely. I came here for law school in 2010, and surely after this, I'm going to stay here. So.
Oh, and you're on the zoning. Does zoning have anything to do with that?
No, the zoning do not have anything to do with the state management of Belle Isle Park.
Now,
Okay, I'll allow one more minute on Belle Isle. If you have any calls about Belle Isle, call us now.
Or if you want to-
One more minute.
How would that affect if a portion of Belle Isle was rezoned? Would the city be still in that play, or would that come from a state's perspective? How would that?
No, that's definitely the city owns Belle Isle,
Okay.
so it's definitely going to be a city issue.
Okay.
So
But it is zoned though, right? I mean, like all
it's,
other.
it's zoned for park.
for-
So
yeah.
if it does,
Right.
it has to
go
through
come before the
BZA.
BZA and the city
But
process.
that'll never happen.
Was somebody
I would
talking
like to
about
see some stuff on the island.
putting houses on Belle Isle?
I don't think that's I don't
I
think
think
that-
that's crazy.
Not any
That
houses,
won't
but
happen.
there's an island in Toronto that is similar to Belle Isle, and they have some retail opportunities, some eateries and different things like that I think are, when I visited the city, it was really, really nice, and I think that that could be an asset, or at least it deserves some consideration.
Well, I love the Riverwalk. I love what the city through partnerships have done. Now you can go from Joe Louis Arena to the Belle Isle Bridge virtually, and be
Really?
close to the water. And you don't need a pass.
It
You
extends
don't have
that
to,
far?
Yeah.
Practically.
You don't need a pass. You don't have to have a certain skin hue or last name or a certain address.
Papers.
No papers.
No papers.
No papers. I mean, you can do it every day of the week.
And what I think it's going to do is actually, they pumped that $10 to $20 million in Belle Isle. It's going to fix the roads. It's definitely going to fix the roads.
bridges
because
and the bridges.
Places, you have major vendors like before when we talk about Penske and when they have the Grand Prix, you're going to have those issues already fixed.
Yeah.
So that the roads won't be torn up again. Then they're going to have they're going to redo the trails and all the other beautiful parts of Belle Isle that used to be there, but it's ran down. But for a 15-year period.
Put some more animals out there.
Instead of 30-year, they asked.
They're going to relocate. They're going to do gentrification of the deer out there, bring in some suburb deer.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask one more question about Belle Isle. Oh, the fee. The fee is not a major fee either, and you could get into all of the state parks.
3 cents a day averages out.
$11 a car, and that's basically it.
Again-
But it's not a done deal yet. Number
Doesn't
one,
a pack of
City
cigarettes
Council still has
cost
to agree with this.
$10 now? I
Yeah,
mean,
that is an important point, Robert. I mean, City Council is expected next Tuesday to take this up
Yeah.
and react to it with a public hearing. So I think for people who are concerned
Oh, my
about
God.
having input, I mean, there is a process in place to do that. But so
I remember the last public hearing on Belle
well, it'll
Isle.
probably be the same thing. I mean, I don't expect that it'll be different. There are going to be some people who are vehemently opposed to any type of management agreement with the state. It's
But
just gonna
unfortunately, we under a state of emergency with the emergency manager. Now, if they don't agree with it, city council doesn't agree with it, it comes back with the
I think he can unilaterally
emergency manager at that point in
Well,
time.
the funny thing about all this in the bankruptcy is the judge hasn't even really approved a bankruptcy, has he?
No, I think there's certain things. It seems to me, and this is just me thinking. I don't have a connection, but I think there's certain things they want to get done in advance. Meaning the EM and the governor. I think there's certain things they want to get done in advance of that decision. I think Belle Isle is one of them. I mean, I think that's why you saw the proposal back in the spring. The governor wanted to get that done, and I think they see an opportunity now to get it done in advance of the bankruptcy judge's decision.
I kind of think that was the plan all along.
Yeah. Well, here again, I hate to keep going back to 20 years ago, but the city had an opportunity to do this itself. And there wasn't the will on city council to do it. I mean, I remember talking to individual members, and some of them had different reasons, slightly different reasons, but had the city done this 20 years ago, we may not be having this conversation.
Good point, possibly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's go to what happened yesterday in Washington, D.C. with the lady who had a car. I mean, she took the car, she tried to ram the gates of the White House, and the police stopped her, and then she took off racing. They started shooting into the car. Just so much was happening. She had the baby or little 1-year-old in the car and so forth. Also, they said that she was 34 years old from Stamford, Connecticut, and she said that she had mental issues, and one of them, she thought she was being stalked by President Obama.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's
mental health.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's a very sad story, but it does lift up, and these things happen continually, both throughout the country and here locally. We continually have to deal with the mental health issue, and what is government's role in providing resources for people who otherwise would be in facilities, right? I mean, we all know people as we go down Woodward or along the boulevard, people who otherwise would be in institutions, but they're walking along the street. And most of them aren't harming anybody, but some of them are. And this, when I heard, when we heard the story yesterday and getting the updates today, it's the first thing that I think about. I mean, government, I think, has a responsibility to provide services for people who have these mental challenges.
Well,
I don't think that. I don't believe in this instance here. I mean, it's an isolated incident, and she was suffering from some type of mental health disorder,
mental break.
But she was probably what we would consider a middle class person. She was it
affects everybody, Robert.
Technician, dental hygienist,
yeah.
Technician or whatnot. Brand new, what looked like a brand new black Infiniti. She wasn't one of the folks that's on the street. Would you see a typical person out there?
But we don't really know that, Robert. I mean, how many people who? I mean, we always talk about people who are functional alcoholics or people who have, people who have afflictions, but go to work every day. They still have the challenge. The challenge is still there, and there still is, in my view, a government response, an appropriate government response to provide services for people. And even if she could afford it, the reality is there are a lot of people like her who can't.
Well, in this instance here, she could, and she was addressing that.
But
by
a lot
having,
of people don't think they're crazy.
She had medicine to help out with that. I'm not sure if she took it that day or when is the last time she took it,
right.
But she was addressing those issues at the time.
Okay.
And trying to function amongst society.
Right.
It's just that this time something happened. I don't know the details, but something happened there where she snapped and tried to go through the barriers of the White House.
Well, I think that we're kind of glazing over some eyewitness accounts. From some folks who were right there. They mentioned that from the perspective of the Secret Service guy. And the security there, the quote from the guy, the eyewitness observer, was that the Secret Service guy was just having a cow, yelling at her, banging on her car. And so, we just automatically assume she must be crazy. And so I think this story, there may be some
I don't think we're automatically
there's some
family
there's some family that have said, but if you're getting at, there's two sides to every story.
There's definitely two sides to the story.
So what are you saying, Chris?
Well, I'm saying all I'm doing is repeating what this eyewitness observer saw, and This gentleman, obviously, it looks like a couple, BJ and Susan Campbell. They account that she was driving toward the security checkpoint. She went about 20 yards before rapidly turning her car around. And then, I quote, BJ Campbell said, the Secret Service guy was just having a cow, yelling at her and banging on her car. So he could have been, and under the guise of all the terrorism and things like that, sometimes you do have individuals that make a mountain out of a molehill. This woman could have been turned around.
What are you saying? Wait, are you saying the Secret Service man or the Capitol Police made a mountain out of a molehill? You're not supposed to get anywhere near
Possibly.
that.
Guess what? People make wrong turns and go down wrong ways.
Yeah, but
and you can startle someone.
It really don't happen in Capitol Hill.
No, Chris,
in the White House.
Look,
Believe me, you won't even get close.
I lived in D.C. and
That don't happen.
You can't.
Not after
You can't get
911.
anywhere near.
Not after 911.
Either the cap. Well, you can get.
But do we know exactly
near the
where
Capitol,
she?
but
You know
the White House, and
know
then
exactly
on top
where
of
she was?
that,
Yes, they made it.
on the
Where
banging
exactly
on
was she?
windows and whatnot, she's right in front of the White House.
Right in front
on
of
the
the White
side
House.
of it.
Okay.
Trying to go through the barriers. Number one.
So nobody
do it.
should have had a cow on
No,
that.
I'm not saying that, but the
What are
cow
you
was
saying?
on
The
before
public knows this.
she broke out. This happened before she ran the barricade down. This happened before.
I got your back, Chris. I mean, I hear what you're saying. We learn more, as these stories happen in real time, we learn more about the circumstances. I'm only saying, when you hear these situations, I'm just saying it gives us it provides an opportunity for us to have a larger discussion about not just this particular incident, but a challenge out there that we know exists. Some of it could be, a trigger happy law enforcement. I mean, we've talked about that issue in a couple different ways on this show. It just provides
It exists, Brenda.
I mean,
it exists.
without
I
Brenda,
know it
without-
does exist.
Look at the
Brenda,
fact
without
Chris, it
Brenda,
does
got cowboys
exist.
without having a
with
crystal
badges.
ball, Brenda, we're all pontificating about what we have read and said. We none of us were there. None of us know
I
any
know
of the
that,
people
but
involved.
what I am
so
saying-
it's a conversation.
But look what happened afterwards with the 12-block chase to the Capitol.
That's not what the
That's
article.
what happened.
And that stuff could change.
From the White House
we've heard
to
situations
the Capitol building, it's 12 blocks, 12 blocks. High-speed chase.
You
Are
know,
gonna
in
stop
this
somewhere
day
between
and
then?
time,
It's
since
serious stuff.
Are we gonna stop
9/11,
anywhere between
since
then?
9/11, they just had the Navy Yard shooting
Yep.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago
So they're
or
at
so.
heightened security.
They are on heightened alert. They are on heightened
My
alert. They
point
should have got
exactly.
her.
My point exactly. Maybe, and I'm not saying it's the case, but I'm saying that there's two sides to every coin.
I say they
maybe
were
this
on
guy was a
heightened
little
alert.
bit high strung, and
I say that at that point, if she had her brains about her, I say if she had her brains about her, knowing what had happened 2 weeks ago,
Maybe she didn't
would
know.
not.
It's not what
The world
it's
knew.
the reasonable,
Maybe she didn't know.
It's the
This is
reasonable,
not exactly stop and
it's-
frisk.
this
though.
is
I mean,
the-
she was in.
But it's the reasonable what a reasonable
Yeah, this is not stop
person
and
would
frisk
have
at all.
done, and that's the bottom line. And no reasonable person would have tried to ram a barrier of the White House and then go on a
she
high-speed
didn't
chase
try
to
to
the
ram the
Capitol.
barrier. She did not try to
Yes,
ram
she
the
did.
barrier.
Okay.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
That's the one thing that they did say she did.
No, what they said
I
was that
watched
she
it.
tried to go. She slowed and tried to go around it. That's what the article
No,
says.
that was late.
Did you
That
see the
was
video?
later in the chase. I watched where
You didn't see the
I
video,
watched
did
it.
you?
I watched it
was
from
video of her
Yes,
arrest?
it was.
Washington D.C. I watched the Washington D.C. I streamed it at the Washington D.C.
right.
station.
right.
And it just seemed to be a little more.
You know what? And I've
views and
seen.
opinions
Wait a minute.
offered by
I've seen
Chris Summerall
videos.
are
I know.
like,
I've
oh,
seen.
okay.
And I'm just gonna call it like it is. I've seen videos where a person is driving a cop or someone that's kind of positions himself in front of the car, and he's like, "You tried to run me over." You know, and the person actually
Hey.
gets charged with
That's Washington,
something like that. And so
D.C.
what I'm saying is,
It's
the way
where
you word
my
things
president
can be
lives. I'm not
misleading.
going to hear
I
it.
understand that. I understand that.
It's
Chris.
where President Obama lives. I'm not going to hear
We're
that.
looking at the facts.
I'm looking at
That's
the
all I read.
heightened alert.
But here, I want to put this out here because this is something that a couple people mentioned to me as they kind of heard the headline, had not seen the video. Brenda had not read any of the accounts, guys. The person said, actually, two people said to me, I just knew it was going to be somebody from the Tea Party, one of the political
know,
over the
I
government
know.
shutdown.
I know.
And when, did any of y'all think that, or did you?
Until they saw them
Kamikaze
carrying that
driver.
little black girl
Yeah.
in their arms, you know.
I thought it was something when I initially heard of it without hearing about race or who actually the parties were.
Right.
I thought it was because it ended up at the state capitol, the U.S. Capitol. I thought it was something that had to do with the government.
Connected to the shutdown.
Shutdown.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want you to walk a minute in these shoes, Chris. Okay, Chris.
Yes.
Move out of the way. So
If you had driven up that way and somebody started yelling at you, would you have taken off and, wait, let me finish the question. Would you have taken off and raced through the crowd and everything, or would you have said, put your hands up in the car, you know, put the car in drive and got out and said, man, I'm not trying to, I just was going the wrong way? Which would you have done?
I would have done the latter.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next.
Ladies and gentlemen,
No time
Chris
for
Summerall
rebuttal
is a public safety professional.
Yeah,
The views and opinions offered
What
by
I'm
him
saying
today.
is sometimes things that appear obvious aren't so
Now,
obvious. As a firefighter in the city
Yeah.
for over 10 years, we've had 10 fire trucks with lights going on, hoses everywhere. Guess what? People still turn down that street, drive over the hoses, trying to get through the fire trucks, and we're like, what the heck are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. But guess what? There are fire trucks everywhere. They're trying to squeeze through. We're like, wait, are you stupid? Yes, they're stupid. And so what I'm saying is that things happen that appear obvious. Reasonably to all of us, we say, oh, I would never try to squeeze by. It's a big building on fire and fire trucks everywhere. I go down 2 blocks and then make my turn.
I would probably
you gotta
be
think
with
about
you.
a national security issue, though. Look at this. Is
People
the
don't
President of the
automatically
United
get
States.
smarter just because they're in D.C.
No. But this is a federal facility. This is the President of the United States that live right there at the White House. You're trying to go through the barriers to the White House. You know how many barriers there? Number one, you have security personnel
13?
before you even get to the barriers. She's trying to go around the barriers. No, that's why the Secret Service is like, hey, no, you can't do this. They start banging on the window. You can't do this. She's speeding off in a circle.
Look at the
and
context
darting
of the
down.
entire. If she would have had some weaponry or
sorry.
something like, she's got a child. Let's look at the
Oh,
fact.
let's
She's
look
got
at
a
the
child.
facts.
She's got some issues. This wasn't something malicious.
How
Or
would
something. This was
you
somebody
know?
who made a mistake.
How would-
They
wait a
made a
minute.
I'm going to
mistake.
disagree with you
Chris,
on this one, Chris.
So you think she intentionally
No.
was? I'm going to take my baby and I'm going to go find
Chris,
Obama.
Yeah,
as a drama professional, I suggest that we go to Washington and reenact and see what happens.
And I'll
Do
be,
a
I'll be the
reenactment.
Secret Service officer.
I will rent. No,
I'll be
will
the baby
rent-
in the back. I can play the baby
No,
in the back.
we'll just
I
go.
have baby face.
No,
I
we'll
don't
just.
have it. Well, not anymore. It's another
Well,
story.
I tell you what, I
Lord,
used to
you
work
are-
at a nuclear Navy yard, and you have personnel, engineers, and construction workers walking back and forth in front of a reactor all the time. If they go into a reactor space, Marines are trained to shoot on sight. No questions about it. There's no questions about it, and we are told, "Hey, stay away from engineers that don't have clearances to go near these buildings. They can't go near them."
Unfortunately for her, it was the last place you want to try to, well, not even assuming she did it on
can't
purpose.
do
It's just the last place. Heightened security, we just talked about the Navy situation, it's post 9/11. It's the last place in America that you want to do something like that. Because they are going to.
Yeah.
National security.
They're
Not going to play that game.
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate.
And
It really
in this
is.
day and time, President Obama, and he's had more threats than any other president ever. They did not have time to check and say, "Ma'am, are you mentally ill or are you of right of
That
mind?"
is not.
You know
That's
what-
not
what hap-
any
what
type
happens
of
after
point I'm
that,
making. I'm not
and
arguing that
to
point.
hone in my
What
point
I'm saying
about
is she
with
didn't
the
have to
Navy
necessarily
yard,
be malicious in intent.
but see, the hone in on my point with the Navy Yard is that if you don't act ahead of time, and if you don't do the appropriate things, you like I said, shoot on sight. If they didn't act the way they did, they will be reprimanded several
understand that.
times over. It's their job
To
protect the President of the United States.
and I'm not.
No questions about it.
I know we've gone a long time on this subject. I'm sorry, but I suggest we do the reenactment and see what happens to us. Chris, I'm not laughing at what you
Well,
said.
let's take the
but
show to DC.
But the bottom line, and which I'm for, the bottom line, I'm looking for donations or a private jet.
Call us at,
a
303.
private jet. The bottom line is the mentally ill are being neglected in this country, but also her family knew that she had mental problems. and they couldn't do anything about it, I guess. I don't know what happened. I guess we'll learn more by and by, don't you think?
Yeah.
And everything. Chris.
Well, sorry, Chris. I actually did support you for a long
No,
way.
I felt that, and I
had
really appreciate that.
There was a point
And-
I had to get off the train. Though.
No,
I just felt like.
Oh well, we were together for a nice little ride.
We took the train to Baltimore back to
And
DC.
then you had to go.
I had to
Fair
get
to do.
off that train. I had to get off that train.
Well,
Speaking of DC.
Right, go on.
Well, speaking of Washington, D.C., this is day 4 of the government shutdown.
and
course,
Obamacare.
And Obamacare, which is
I mean,
really
excuse me, Affordable Care
Well,
Act.
it's a great. We need to talk about that within the context of this conversation because it's day number 4. But obviously, the big stumbling block between Democrats and Republicans is the Affordable Care Act / Obamacare, right? And that is where the Tea Party Republicans have sort of put the line in the sand, and they said, "Hey, we don't want to fund Obamacare, and we're going to withhold a budget vote until we get that." What do you guys think? I mean, did you think it would go day 4, and how long would we be having this conversation this time next week?
Well, they're going to lose this battle here because
The Republican Tea Party
Yeah,
folks,
the
or-
Republican Tea Parties. It's already funded, as the president said. It's going to go on regardless. Right now, they need to go back and vote on this measure, get it over with, especially with the impending sequestration's about to come about.
Yeah.
No, debt ceiling.
Or
Well,
debt
debt
ceiling.
ceiling, that's right, I get
The
it.
debt ceiling obligation they have to address. Even Speaker Boehner said the same thing. They have to address this. It's not going to go further than maybe another week or so. I don't think it's going to last that long, honestly.
And do you think that those individuals know this? And if they do, what do you think they're trying to gain by this positioning or this just approach?
I think who was it last week in the Senate?
Ted Cruz.
Senator Ted Cruz. He started his whole measure off, and it unfortunately it put
Tea Party senator.
And unfortunately it put the House Republicans, that wing, it's probably about 28 to 30 of them, Tea Party Republicans, got a hold of the Republican majority, and they took a stance on they're going to try to defund Obamacare, or what you want to call Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things that are really striking here. One, Speaker Boehner cannot control his caucus. I mean, we've seen that over and over again, but now
He's
we
quivering
really,
right now.
Yeah, we really know it because he really wants a deal. You know, he has said to his caucus, let's live to fight another day. We can fight Obamacare. Had 47 votes on it. It's not like you're going to do anything with it. But clearly he can. The Tea Partiers are controlling the conversation. So Brenda, my thought is, I've always grown up in school thinking we had a 2-party system. I think we got 3 now,
3-party
don't we?
system.
I mean, the Tea Party they're not a lot of them, but
And
there are
the
enough of them.
thing about them, they're not fearful of Wall Street.
Yeah, they don't
No,
do anything.
and a lot of these Congress people are in districts where they will not lose because they have gerrymandered and redistricted so much that they are solidly Republican districts.
And what I think is those 30 or so Tea Party Republicans, they may be in some pretty solid districts, but the rest of Republicans are not. And once this is going to really backfire on those guys. Come up next year when their elections got to come back up. And they're going to lose some seats over there.
I hope you're right, but obviously what the Tea Party folks are saying is we're going to run Tea Party people in your district, and so if you're a moderate Republican in a safe Republican district, the Tea Partiers are going to say we're going to bring all the national money. I mean, now you can dump as much money you want to into federal and local elections, and they're saying they've got the dough. The Koch brothers and all these other guys, we've got the dough to vote you out, to get you out.
Do you
and
know?
These guys want their jobs.
Do you all know anyone who's tried to go into the .gov website to try to get the Affordable Care
Not
Act?
personally. I've just seen the stories that you have. The people are signing on. They're going onto the website. The website is jammed. They can't get through. But I haven't talked to anybody this week personally that has
Well,
done
let
that.
me just say from a personal account, I am a law student, and I went on there day one, and I couldn't get through to sign on anything because it was locked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, and fact, I think it crashed a few times. But they say they'll work out the glitches, and we have to move on. Mrs. Jackson, Michael Jackson's mother, lost her $1 billion lawsuit. They were trying to get AEG, the company that hired Michael to do these concerts. They were suing them because they said they were negligent by hiring Dr. Conrad Murray and stuff like that, and they lost. But I think, and we were talking about that too, Ken, that she was trying to get money basically for the rest of the family, because Michael's kids are okay, right?
Yeah. What my understanding is that Catherine Jackson gets a very, what's been called in news reports, a very comfortable sort of estate settlement as it relates to what's coming from Michael's estate to help raise the children, Michael's kids. And so the reports say she's living very comfortably. You're right. I mean, what I've been hearing is, you know, what she was really trying to do is help Tito and Jermaine and Marlon and Randy and the other families, probably minus Janet, because she's got a couple $1 billion. But they've had financial challenges over the years, we've read and seen, so this was an attempt, the argument goes, on Catherine's behalf, or on Catherine's part, to sort of create a nest egg for those guys.
Well,
unfortunate.
That's too bad.
Unfortunate.
We could go to
I would like to say that it could be the fact that she thought AEG was at fault, and she wanted to sue them for the death of her son. I mean, that could be it also. We don't know, and we're speculating that it's for the rest of the family. She could be suing to make a point.
Legitimately, too.
Yeah, legitimate lawsuit to make a point that, hey,
could do that for
you
$1.
Hired this guy.
You could do that for $1.
You knew his record.
You could do that for $1, though, Robert. I mean, if it was all about the principle.
To make a principle.
If it was all about the principle.
I do a lot of things out of principality.
Yeah.
Robert, let's get local. Your top story.
Oh. You mean crazy or?
I mean locale, not loco. We've already gone loco a couple of times
so I
on
believe
this show.
Yesterday, the day before yesterday, we've heard news about the Attorney General, well, not the Attorney General, the prosecutor for the Kilpatrick trial was looking for a 30-year sentence for Kilpatrick and his co-conspirators, Bobby Ferguson. I don't believe they're going to totally get that 30-year request. I believe it's going to be 20. I believe it's going to be in that 15 to 20-year range. I don't think the judge is going to throw the book at Kwame for the whole 28 to 30 years. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's happened before, in fact.
Yeah, my understanding is it would be unprecedented, but the people, the government is arguing that what he's been convicted of is unprecedented too, and coupled with the fact that he was a felon. I mean, people forget there are a couple of different cases that were kind of going on almost simultaneously, but he was convicted in a state case. He violated parole on numerous occasions, not numerous occasions, but certainly at least 2 or 3 times. And so there is some argument for arguing the max. But I do agree with you. If your point is you don't believe he'll ultimately get sentenced to 28, I think it'll probably be more like 20.
Yeah, because it's ultimately up to the judge.
Yep,
but all of those situations arise out of the same case, though.
Well, no. Now remember. Now let's go back. I mean, it all happened within 10 years, and we sometimes forget. There are a couple different cases that were. It was a federal racketeering trial. Yeah. There was also, the cover up that led to, the cover up of the party that never happened, and an investigation of it. Him assaulting a process server or a Wayne County sheriff.
He
deputy.
wasn't convicted.
He was on probation, and he violated his probation.
There was a federal probation.
That's my point. There's a state case. There's a federal case, and I'm saying people forget he was already convicted in a state case. So he wasn't a Boy Scout going into this.
No, which is true, but I don't think they can roll up those types of prior acts.
Well, that's what
into this one. They're going to attempt to, but I don't
that's
believe
all
the
I'm
judge is
arguing.
going to buy into.
Yeah, that's all I'm arguing. That's what the government is saying.
He was convicted of this, and that, all out of the same case because it was state and federal.
Yeah, you're the law student. I'm just trying to argue what the government is saying, what they're arguing.
That's quite a bit of time, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. And I've covered Kwame Kilpatrick. Our families know each other. I've known Kwame Kilpatrick probably since the mid 90s. I remember when his youngest child was born. I remember when the twins were the same age as my child. It's very tough to see that somebody go through that, and I feel bad for the kids. I mean, Jonas is 10 or 11 years old. He's probably not going to see his dad at least until he's got kids on his own and kids of his own and well out there in society. I'm not making any excuses for Kwame Kilpatrick. He did what he did. He's been convicted of what he's been convicted of. But it does take a toll on the families, and he's going to be gone for a long time. Whether it's 20 or 28, that's a long time.
Yes, it does. And I heard that they said that Bobby Ferguson, they believe, still has money. Stored away because they overheard or they tapped into a conversation he had with his girlfriend that it said that he had money in Alabama to take out. Gosh,
well, they believe. It seems they are talking. I mean, when you hear the prosecution's argument, it almost sounds like what they're saying is there's somewhere that Bobby Ferguson has like $70 million buried. It just seems like that's a lot of money. And I think if he stole $1 and is convicted of it, he needs to serve every day appropriate. It just seems not logical that somebody could actually have $70 million in a tunnel somewhere.
Unfortunately, they're going to have to go by the facts. The fact is they don't have. They haven't collected or accounted for the money that they say they're speculating is out there.
That's right.
So they can't bring that up and say you should throw 30 years at this guy because he has money hidden.
Because we think
there's no factual.
So that's just really conversation that we're having out in the marketplace. It's not admissible, and it's not admissible, but it's not a conversation.
They're definitely not going to say, Judge, he has $700 million out there.
So let's give him the.
Let's give him. They're not going to.
I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit, and then this happens next Tuesday, by the way, with Mr. Kilpatrick and Mr. Ferguson
Thursday,
being sentenced next Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday? Okay.
So I know a lot of people are going to be down there and everything to see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
And television preempted and all
it'll be helicopters all over downtown
Detroit.
Ridiculous.
I wanted to go to the absentee ballots. They had the handwriting expert come in.
Oh, my God.
And the handwriting expert said the handwriting was different. Then Mr. Davis and Ms. Wilcoxon filed to have, there was last Tuesday, right, Ken?
It was last week. It was last week.
Well, then Janice Winfrey was in court Tuesday, right?
Yeah, making her case for why the absentee ballots should be mailed out. Look, I've said this 3 or 4 times over the course of the summer on this show. Look, I believe, like everybody else, that we ought to have fair and clean elections. But it just seems to me that there's a PR / campaign set of happenings that have gone on around this election all summer. It just seems to me that Ms. Wilcoxon has found a way to stay in the news and to compete and vie for the office by continually raising, issue after issue. She has the constitutional right to do it. I just wonder when the general election actually happens, will we just move on, or will people challenge the results of the general election? It just seems to be that's just what we're going to do as a PR angle to get elected clerk, or for the mayoral candidates to defeat the front runner and cause either Benny Napoleon to be elected, or maybe another campaign where Tom Barrow comes back and runs for a 5th time for mayor. I don't get it.
I don't know either. Do you think that publicity has helped Ms. Wilcoxon?
As a PR professional, any publicity is good publicity. Now, whether or not it's enough to score her a victory, I don't think so. But as I said on the morning show a couple months ago, this time 8 years ago, nobody knew who Janice Winfrey was. And people would tell you, politicos would tell you downtown, there's no way Jackie Curry's going to lose an election for city clerk. Right. Anything can happen.
Right.
And I think maybe not so much promoting Miss Wilcoxon, but diminishing the credibility of Miss Winfrey. And so I think that that's still a plus for her trying to run for that office.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where, you know, she's running for office and she doesn't have money out there in her coffers for ads or whatnot. So she's going to keep her name out there, period, point blank. And Sue, along with Tom Barrow and Robert Davis.
I think it's public relations. I really do.
Well, let's look at what could be good news, Chris.
Yeah. So this week, the state approved the sale of the Michigan Fairgrounds to a group headed by Michigan's own Irvin Magic Johnson. And there's been a lot of talk with regard to what to be expected on that parcel. I forget how many acres.
176
acres, yeah. And so this will by far be the most optimistic as far as development in the city in a long time as far as retail. You know, I've heard anything from movie theaters to big box retail to...
Just as long as he doesn't put any schools there, we'll be fine. Because I hear his schools are just the worst.
No, he's not going to put any schools there. I mean, it's state property. He has to deal with the state.
Well, that's a reason why it could happen. To be honest.
Yeah. And it's something that's it's an eyesore right now. The state's trying to get it off his back. They're making a deal for, I believe, $1 million or $4 million.
It's with him, Joel Ferguson, and Marvin Beatty.
Marvin Beatty's in there. Yeah.
Well, it's great. I mean, it's great to see. I mean, you know, I grew up going. You know, we talked a lot about Belle Isle today. Grew up going to the state fair at the end of the summer. We know the state fair is gone. It's not coming back. And so we do have to find, it seems to me, a reuse for the land. You know, the Gateway Project kind of got things going. It's uniquely placed, you know, the 8-mile thoroughfare not far from 75 and a link between the counties. And so I think it's a great thing. It's good to see Magic Johnson part of the deal and Marvin. You know, Beatty part of the deal, Joel Ferguson, African Americans, local and statewide guys. So I think it's a great day for Detroit in an otherwise crazy set of times.
Yeah, it's been going on. I mean, they've been trying to do it for a while now, and I'm just happy to see it finally going through. So.
Well,
I was just going to say, you know, with the new retail and this projected being another great addition, how do you think that the next challenge is to change the mindset of individuals in and around Detroit that anything in Detroit may be subpar? I know people that, you know, I won't go there because where it's located. They'll you know, they'll go to the brand, but not to that brand. So how do you think we get past that? Because if you got a movie theater,
I think with the evolution of attitudes, with the evolution of Detroit, period, we have a lot of other mixed races coming in here. A lot of that's going to be diluted. I mean, they come down to the downtown Detroit for our athletic programs and the restaurants down there. I think you're going to see people coming from across. I bet people. Matter of fact, I see people coming from 8 Mile, crossing that Rollo area to come to Myers now.
But what I hope happens, though, I think you guys are right. I think what I hope happens, though, is that people will go to the big boxes, but also support Main Street, because that's what the people along Livernois are concerned about. Whether or not you're going to go to their shops, or whether or not you're going to go to the big box shops. Now, Ferndale and Royal Oak, they've done, they have great downtowns. People support their main streets and the big boxes. I just hope that the same thing happens here in Detroit, because the people along the Avenue of Fashion have fought long and hard. They've got great businesses, and they're not Myers, but they do provide, a service.
Unique businesses too, and we got to tie it up now because it's that time. And I mean, time went by quick. We had so much, and we argued and everything, but we agreed to disagree. Maybe. I guess when I go into the state fairgrounds where Magic Johnson has his store, I'll say, "Oh, right here! I was standing on somebody's shoulders as I watched the Four Tops right in this location when it was at the state fair." But anyway, everybody, thanks for joining us. I hope you didn't mind us fussing. We'll fuss some more next week at 1 o'clock. Thank you, gentlemen, for
Thank you.
a very
Appreciate it.
excitable show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Watson. my
And don't forget to
producer.
register to vote.
And go Tigers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go Tigers.
And we'll see you next week.
Let's bring the issues to the table on Table Talk with